Hey guys, this is God of Politics. I'm going to a brand new video, but before we get started this video, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also follow me on Twitter and join the Discord. Those are both linked down in the description. But in today's video, I will be doing my final Senate elections prediction video. The Senate is currently standing at 50-50, and we have a number of competitive races, a number of toss-up 50-50 races that could really go either way. I'm really leaving it to the last minute just because of how uncertain I am about many of these races. I've looked at many points of data, in terms of polls, fundamentals, trends, to come to these conclusions, to come to these predictions. Of course, they could end up being wrong, but these are my projections. I think a lot of people have similar projections, and we'll see that when people make their predictions as well. Election day, as I'm recording this, is tomorrow. It's going to be a very exciting night. I'm excited to see all of the results from governor, Senate, and House races, state legislative races, everything. It's going to be a great night, and hopefully we get a lot of exciting results. But without further ado, we can get right into these predictions. So first, starting off with the safe Republican states, includes Idaho, Utah, Alaska. I think Lisa Murkowski is going to win. North Dakota, South Dakota, Kansas, both of the Senate elections in Oklahoma, as well as Louisiana, Arkansas, Alabama, South Carolina, Missouri, Indiana, Kentucky, as well as the state of Iowa. I think that Chuck Grassley is going to win by a safe margin. And that is going to be all of the safe states for the Republicans, getting them already to 45 seats. They only need 5 more. Or 6 more, I should say, to get to the majority, 5 more to get to 50 with Kamala Harris as the tiebreaker. And as for the Democrats, who start out with 36 seats not up for re-election, we have California, Oregon, as well as the state of Illinois, New York, Maryland, Vermont, and Connecticut. That puts the Democrats at 43 seats, as well as the state of Hawaii. So Republicans are at 45, Democrats are at 44, meaning there are 11 states that I'm projecting will be under 10 percentage points. I use 10 plus as safe, 5 to 10 for likely, 2 to 5 for lean, and 0 to 2 for tilt. But getting into those likely margin states now, we can first start off with the state of Florida. Now, Florida, I don't think is going to be competitive by any means, but I do think that Rubio will be slightly under 10 percentage points, probably winning by about 9 percentage points. I think he actually is going to do worse than DeSantis does, partially because Rubio is going up against a better candidate in Val Demings, who's not necessarily a great candidate on paper, but she has had, a lot of fundraising capabilities, and she's ran a decent campaign. But Florida, the Democratic Party there has really just not done well, and she's not going to do well as a result of that. But I do think that it will be slightly under 10 percentage points. I also think that the state of Ohio is going to be a likely marginal state. Now, there's a lot of talk about the state of Ohio, could be competitive. Tim Ryan could win. Tim Ryan was never going to win from the start, and J.D. Vance has pulled away towards the end, and it did take a lot of resources from the Republican Party, a lot of financial resources to be put into J.D. Vance, which the Republicans obviously would not have liked to do. Ideally, they'd obviously have rather want to put it in other races, which at this point they may end up winning anyway. But at the time, there was a period where J.D. Vance was not in a strong position, but now it looks like he's going to win by a pretty solid margin. I think he'll probably end up winning by a similar margin to what Trump did, around 7 to 8 percentage points. That would not surprise me at all. I think next is actually going to be the state of North Carolina. North Carolina is a state that I do think will go by a likely margin. And if we go back to 2016 here, we can see that, in 2016, this state did also go by a likely margin of around 6 percentage points, which was more narrow than 2010 in a wave year. But, it was still a likely margin when Burr ran slightly ahead of Donald Trump by a few percentage points. I think you might see a similar thing here. I think that Ted Buddy is going to win by around 5 to 6 percentage points, pushing that into the likely column. Sherry Beasley has really not run a great campaign. Ted Budd has run a lot of, negative ads that have been very effective in this race, and it's been to his benefit. And I do think that it is going to give him a likely margin of victory. And that puts Republicans at 48 seats already, Democrats being at 44. And I do think they will have 2 states in the likely margin, being Washington and Colorado. Now, let me get this straight. Washington is not going to be competitive. But I do think that it will be slightly under 10 percentage points here. If we look at a lot of this polling data, we can see, certain polls do show it close. Of course, these are Republican pollsters, a lot of them. And, it's not going to be a 1-point race, a 2-point race, but it does have the possibility to be, under 10 percentage points like it was in 2010. And in 2016, it was by an 18-point margin. So, I wouldn't be surprised if it's under 10 percentage points, and I'm just going to do that to be slightly cautious. I think it'll go by around, let's say 9.5 percentage points. I think that would be, a pretty acceptable margin for that race there. And as for Colorado, I do think Michael Bennet will do worse than Jared Polis does, but as you can see here, he's winning by pretty solid margins. Even in Republican polling, has him up by 2 by the Trafalgar Group, which I do think will underestimate him by a couple points. I think Bennet ends up winning probably by around, 7 percentage points, something like that, and so that would give him a likely margin of victory. Now, that puts Democrats at 46 seats, needing 4 to get a majority. Republicans at 48, needing 3 to get a majority. And getting into these lean margin states, first, I'm actually going to start off with the state of Wisconsin. Now, I do think Wisconsin will probably go by a lean margin, maybe by around, 3-4 percentage points here. I think Ron Johnson is in a pretty solid position for re-election. There was a period of time where it looked like, Mandela Barnes did have a decent chance of winning, made a number of polls over the summer showing that he was up, but, Ron Johnson put out a number of negative ads, put a lot of money and resources into this race. It has turned in his favor, and he's been up in a lot of these polling. I do think Emerson is a pretty solid poll. I think, Trafalgar, a lot of people don't like their methodology, but they do have accurate results, particularly in the Rust Belt, and so I do think that it is going to prove to be pretty accurate in terms of their poll, their most recent poll here that they just did, showing him up by 3 percentage points. I think he wins by about 3 to 4 percentage points. Wisconsin polls have historically not been that great, and I think 2022, including those polls showing Ron Johnson up, will make Wisconsin polls slightly more accurate, but there haven't really been as many polls, I would say, as the last couple of cycles, and a lot of it has been from these internal polling groups. But, we have had Fox News, Siena College, some other polls. Emerson, I do think, is one of the better pollsters, and so, I think we'll see some interesting results there. I also think that Nevada is a lean margin state for the Republicans. This would be a flip for them, their first flip that I am projecting so far. Now, Nevada does have a history of underestimating Democrats in polls, but I don't think they're going to underestimate Democrats enough in these races for them to be able to win. Emerson has Catherine Cortez Masto down 5. Insider Advantage has her down 6. And while, certain polls do show her up, they don't show her up by very much, and they don't have her getting anywhere near 50%. Laxalt has cracked 50% in some of these polls, and I do think that does bode quite well for him. And Nevada is a state that, has a history of electing Republicans. Republicans have opportunities in the gubernatorial race here. They have opportunities in all 4 House seats, really. So, this could be a good year for Nevada Republicans, just like 2014 was, just like years where they've had success in the past. They came close in 2016. They came close in years like 2010 as well. So, I think Nevada is one of those interesting races where I do think that they will be able to pull it out at the end of the day, albeit by a very, very narrow margin. And so you can see here, after the lean margin races, Republicans are at 50, Democrats are at 46, and all 4 of the last races I do have being under 2 percentage points. There's a lot of competitive races this cycle, and I think that we're going to see that here. Now, to start off with the tilt margin races, I am first going to start off with the state of Pennsylvania. Now, Pennsylvania is a very, very interesting race, and I think that it is going to be razor thin. I think it'll probably be under 1 percentage point, actually. Now, Oz has made a lot of gains over the past couple of months. We can see here Fetterman was winning by very, very large amounts in lots of these polls. Since then, Oz has made substantial gains. Especially since that debate where, obviously John Fetterman didn't do very well, recovering from a stroke. He, had a lot of poor media coverage over that moment, as he has had a lot of recently about his health, and I think that has hurt him majorly in the polls, not making many media appearances, not having, many rallies, that great of a campaign, and I think that it has hurt him, and I think in the state of Pennsylvania, the result is going to end up being very, very close. I think it'll take days to call this election, but I do think that Oz is going to end up winning. It'll be within recount territory, I do think, but I do think at the end of the day, Oz does win but I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Fetterman is able to pull it out. A lot of people have written him off, but I would not be surprised. And I do think that while Oz does win very, very narrowly, this race really could go either way. I do think that Shapiro does win, which may help drag him over the line, but as of now, I don't think it's going to be enough, which is why I am putting it as tilt Republican. Now, I'm also going to put Georgia as tilt Republican, but I do think that this race is going to a runoff. I'm only putting it at tilt Republican in the sense that I do think Herschel Walker is going to get more votes in the first round. I think that he wins by around 1 percentage point, but I think that he's going to fall just below the 50% threshold necessary to avoid a runoff, and I do think that it is going to end up going to a runoff. This has been a very close race. Obviously, you had a lot of scandals going on, but Herschel Walker has been able to remain in the race. And Georgia polls are interesting. They do have actually a history of underestimating Democrats in many cases, and we do have a lot of Republican polls here that have shown close races. And so I do think that, all of these things sort of even each other out, and you get a result that is razor thin, that in the state of Georgia at least leads you to a runoff. And I think that is what we're going to see in the state of Georgia. And we can see Republicans are already at 52 seats here, meaning that they would take Senate control in this scenario. Even if you take Georgia away from them and they lose the runoff, they still have 51 seats taking control of the Senate, which is what I am projecting. But I am going to project New Hampshire is a state that the Democrats are going to win. New Hampshire is a state that many people just, said lean Democrat and didn't think too much of it. But we have had a couple of polls recently that have shown it as razor thin, some even showing the Republicans winning. The, I guess you could say, gold standard for New Hampshire, St. Anselm, has shown that Don Bolduc is actually up by a point. Well, I don't think that he's actually going to win. I do think that this race may be closer than many people think. I think if there's going to be a sleeper flip, it's going to be New Hampshire. I said back in 2020, Georgia is the sleeper flip. It did end up being the sleeper flip. And I think if there is going to be a sleeper flip in 2022, it is going to be the state of New Hampshire. It could shock a lot of people. I think in 2016, in a lot of ways it shocked a lot of people. This was a very close race, razor thin, after Kelly Ayotte won by a very substantial margin in 2010. She lost in 2016 very narrowly. 2022 could be a similar thing, but I just don't have enough evidence for me to move it to that column. And so for now, I am putting it at tilt Democrat as my final rating. And then the final state, the state of Arizona, I am going to put as a tilt Democrat race. Now, this took me a long time to project. This was a very tough race to predict, and I was still deciding it even just this morning. But, it is going to be a very difficult race for Kelly to win, but I do think that he narrowly pulls it out. Nevada, or I should say Arizona polls, have generally been quite accurate. And while a lot of polls did overestimate Kelly in 2022, in 2020, a lot of those pollsters do not have polls for this race in 2022, whereas we do have polls like Emerson, which tend to be more accurate, showing a razor thin race. We have polls like Insider Advantage, a Republican poll showing it as a tied race. We have other polls showing Kelly winning very narrowly. We have big data polls showing a 1-point lead for Blake Masters. And so, similar to Pennsylvania, this is a race that I think could go either way. But if I had to predict it, I do think that Kelly is going to narrowly pull it off. I think that Kari Lake is going to win, by around 2 to 3 percentage points. But I think Kelly is going to run ahead of Hobbs and be able to win this race by a tilt margin. So the overall map we have here is 48 Democrats, 52 Republicans, actually being 51 with a runoff. And so we're going to have 48 Democrats, 51 Republicans, and then the runoff in Georgia. But I do think that Herschel Walker does get more votes in the first round. And so the result that we get from this is Republicans flipping the Senate by a 1-seat margin, possibly 2 seats. They would have flipped Nevada and maybe the state of Georgia. Democrats would have come close to flipping Pennsylvania, and semi-close in Wisconsin, but they would not have been able to flip any seats. And so I think that this is a result many people are predicting. Many people say Arizona's going to go red, Georgia's going to go blue, Pennsylvania's going to go blue. There's a lot of different scenarios that could happen, but as of now, this is my map. This is my final map. I'll have exact margins for these races, for the competitive races, on my Twitter, hopefully today. And so, you should go check that out as well. But yeah, this is my final map. Results are coming out tomorrow. hopefully we get, quick results, especially in these competitive races, because it is going to be a nail biter of a night, especially in a lot of these races. But I hope you all enjoy. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Thank you all for watching this video. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also follow me on Twitter and join the Discord. Those are both linked down in the description. But again, guys, thank you all for watching this video, and I will see you guys later.